Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. In this video, we will continue al-Qushayri's epistle on Sufism. Before this, if you still not subscribed, please subscribe and press bell icon. So let's start. Abu Muhammad Jafar bin Muhammad bin Nusayr. He was born and raised in Baghdad. He studied with al-Junayd and associated himself with his circle. He also studied with al-Nuri, Ruwaym, Samnoon and other Sufis of that generation. He died in Baghdad in the year 348. Jafar said, "The servant of God cannot mix the pleasure of dealing with God with the pleasure of his animal soul. That is why the men of the true realities cut all mundane ties which cut them from God, before these ties can cut them from God." I heard Muhammad bin al-Hussein say, I heard Muhammad bin Abdullah bin Shahdan say, I heard that Jafar said, before the servant of God can attain the state of direct encounter with God, the fear of God must install itself in his heart. When the fear of God has installed itself in his heart, the blessing of the knowledge of the divine law will descend upon it, and the desire of this world will disappear from it. Abu al-Abbas al-Sayari, his name is al-Qasim bin al-Qasim. He came from Maro. He studied with Abu Bakr al-Wasti and followed his method in regard to the sciences of this Sufi community. He was a famous scholar. He died in the year 342. Someone asked Abu al-Abbas al-Sayari about the Sufi novice should control himself. He answered, by patiently fulfilling God's commands, avoiding that which God prohibited, keeping the company of the righteous, and serving the poor. He also said, the intelligent man finds no pleasure whatsoever in contemplating God, because the contemplation of God leads to his self-annihilation in God, and there is no pleasure in this. Abu Bakr Muhammad bin Daud al-Dinawari. He was known as al-Duki. He resided in Syria and he lived more than 100 years. He died in Damascus after 350. He studied with Ibn al-Jalla and al-Zakkak. Abu Bakr al-Duki said, the stomach is where all kinds of food are gathered. If you put there a pure food, your members will engage only in pious deeds. If you put there a food of uncertain origin, your progress along the path to God will become uncertain. When you put there an unlawfully obtained food, a veil will appear between you and God's command. Abu Muhammad Abdullah bin Muhammad al-Razi. He was born and raised in Nishapur. He studied with Abu Usman al-Khiri, al-Junayd, Yusuf bin al-Hussein, Ruwaym bin Ahmad, Samnoon, al-Muhib and others. He died in the year 353. I heard Muhammad bin al-Hussein, may God have mercy on him, say, I heard Abdullah al-Razi say, someone asked Abdullah al-Razi why people know their faults yet do not correct them. He answered, because they busy themselves with competing with one another in the superiority of their knowledge of the divine law, and yet they do not put their knowledge to use. They busy themselves with the externals instead of busying themselves with improving their internal natures. Therefore, God has made their hearts blind and prevented their limbs from performing the acts of worship. Abu Amr Ismail bin Nujayd, he studied with Abu Usman al-Hiri and met al-Junayd. He was a man of great stature and the last of Abu Usman's disciples to die. He died at Makkah in the year 366. I heard Sheikh Abu Abdurrahman al-Sulami, may God have mercy on him, say, I heard my grandfather Abu Amr bin Nujayd say, if a spiritual state does not spring from the knowledge of the divine law, it brings harm rather than benefit to its possessor. Al-Sulami said, I also heard that he said, if someone has neglected to perform a religious duty imposed upon him by God, he will be deprived of the pleasure of performing his duty at some point. Someone asked him what Sufism is. He answered, patience under God's commands and prohibitions. Al-Sulami said, Ibn Nujayd said, one of the servant's worst afflictions is his satisfaction with what he has achieved. Abu al-Hasan Ali bin Ahmad bin Sahal al-Bushanji, he was one of those men of Khurasan who practiced chivalry. He met Abu Usman al-Hiri, Ibn Atta al-Adami, al-Jurayri and Abu Amr al-Damishki. He died in 348. Someone asked al-Bushanji what true manliness is. He answered, when you relinquish things that God prohibited to you in the presence of the noble writing angels. Someone asked him, pray to God on my behalf. He said, may God protect you from your own temptation. He also said, the beginning of faith is linked to its end. Abu Abdullah Muhammad bin Khafif al-Shirazi, he studied with Ruwaym bin Ahmad al-Jurayri, Ibn Atta al-Adami and others. He died in the year 371. He was a great Sufi master who was unique in his epoch. Ibn Khafif said, spiritual aspiration to God is constant toil and the forsaking of rest. He said, nothing is more dangerous for the Sufi novice than to allow himself to rely on dispensations and to accept allegorical interpretations of the scripture. Someone asked him about nearness to God. He answered, it is when you are getting near to him by complying with his will, whereas he is getting near to you by constantly granting you success in your undertakings. I heard Abu Abdullah al-Sufi say, I heard Abu Abdullah bin Khafif say, during my early days as a Sufi, I used to recite the phrase, He is God, 10,000 times as I was performing any one part of the ritual prayer. Sometimes I recited the entire Quran during each part of the prayer, and sometimes I performed 1,000 prayers between the early morning and the late afternoon. I heard Abu Abdullah bin Baqiya al-Shirazi, may God have mercy on him, say, I heard Abu Ahmad the Junior al-Saghir say, once a beggar came up to us and said to the master Abu Abdullah bin Khafif, I heard Satan's whisper. The master told him, I am accustomed to the Sufis making mockery of Satan. However, this time Satan is making mockery of them. I heard Abu al-Abbas al-Karhi say, I heard that Abu Abdullah bin Khafif said, when I became too frail to perform my supererogatory prayers standing upright, I began to perform each part of the prayer twice in the sitting position. For a report from the Prophet says, the prayer of the sitting one is a half of the prayer of the standing one. Abu al-Hussein Bundar bin al-Hussein al-Shirazi, he was an expert on the fundamentals of jurisprudence and possessor of a great spiritual state. He studied with al-Shibli and died in Arajan in the year 353. Bandar bin al-Hussein said, do not oppose your soul, leave it to its true master, and he will do with it what he wants. Bundar said, keeping the company of the innovators leads to turning one's back on God. Bundar said, abandon the dictates of your passions for the sake of your hopes. Abu Bakr al-Tamastani, he studied with Ibrahim al-Dabagh and others. He was unique in his age, in his knowledge and spiritual state. He died in Nishapur after the year 340. Abu Bakr al-Tamastani said, the greatest bliss is when you leave behind your soul, for the soul is the thickest veil between you and God. I heard Abu Abdullah al-Shirazi, may God have mercy on him, say, I heard Mansur bin Abdullah al-Isbahani say, I heard Abu Bakr al-Tamastani say, as soon as the heart has become preoccupied with something other than God, it is punished. He also said, the path is clear, and the Holy Book and the Prophet's custom are among us. The merit of the companions of the Prophet is well known due to the fact that they emigrated with the Prophet and accompanied him. Those of us who have chosen as their companions the Holy Book and the Prophet's custom, and who have emigrated with their hearts from their souls and from the creatures to God's presence, are the veracious ones who have thereby achieved their goals. Abu al-Abbas Ahmad bin Muhammad al-Dinavari, he studied with Yusuf bin al-Hussein ibn Atta and al-Jurayri. He was a great and distinguished scholar. He came to Nishapur and stayed there for a while. He was preaching to its people and spoke to them in the language of divine gnosis. Thereupon, he left for Samarkand, where he died after the year 340. Abu al-Abbas al-Dinabri said, the most simple type of recollection of God is when you forget everything but Him, and the ultimate recollection is when the one who recollects God forgets his recollection in the process of recollection. Abu al-Abbas said, the tongue of one's outward state does not change what is inside one's heart. Abu al-Abbas al-Dinavari also said, they have demolished the pillars of Sufism and destroyed its path. They have changed its meanings by giving them new names. They dubbed desire increase, bad manners sincerity. The abandoning of truth, ecstatic utterance, the enjoyment of what is blameworthy bliss, the following of one's passions, temptation, the embrace of this word, arrival, immorality, determination, stinginess, perseverance, begging good works, and idle talk, incurring blame upon oneself. However, this was not the way of the folk in the past. Abu Usman Sayyid bin Salam al-Maghribi, he was the only one of his kind in his epoch. No one before him had similar qualities. He studied with Ibn al-Khatib, Habib al-Maghribi, Abu Amr al-Zajaji, Ibn al-Sayyid and others. He died in Nishapur in the year 373. Before he died, he asked that the Imam Abu Bakr bin Furak pray over his body. I heard the teacher Abu Bakr bin Furak say, I was in Abu Usman al-Maghribi's house before he died. Ali al-Kawal the junior was reciting something when his Abu Usman's condition changed for the worse. We told Ali to keep silence. At this point, Sheikh Abu Usman opened his eyes and asked why Ali was not reciting anything. I told one of those who were there, ask him what does he hear. For I myself was ashamed of asking him about this while he was in such a state. They asked him and he answered, he hears only what God allows him to hear. He distinguished himself as a practitioner of strict self-discipline. Abu Usman said, fear of God is when one stops at the limits set by God without either falling short, keeping back, or overstepping them. He also said, if you prefer the company of the rich to the company of the poor, God will punish you by the death of the heart. Abu al-Qasim Ibrahim bin Muhammad al-Nasrbadi, he was the greatest Sufi master of Khurasan in his age. He studied with al-Shibli, Abu Ali al-Rudbari and al-Murtaish. He settled in Makkah in the year 366 and died in 367. He was an expert on hadith and transmitted many of them. I heard Sheikh Abu Abdurrahman al-Sulami, may God have mercy on him, say, I heard al-Nasrbadi say, when you catch a glimpse of the divine truth, allow neither paradise nor the hellfire to distract you from it. And when you have returned from this state, honor that which God has commanded to honor. I heard Muhammad bin al-Hussein say, someone told al-Nasrbadi that there was a certain man who keeps company with women, saying, I am protected by God from sinful thought whenever I watch them. He answered, as long as there is at least a semblance of the human body, there remains God's command and prohibition, and man is told to comply with what was commanded and what was prohibited to him. And he who encourages the ambiguous will eventually be exposed to the prohibited. I heard Muhammad bin al-Hussein, may God have mercy on him, say, al-Nasrbadi say, the root of Sufism is to hold on to the holy book and the custom of the Prophet, to abandon passions and innovations, to show respect for the Sufi masters, to seek excuses for God's creatures, to constantly repeat prayers, and to avoid dispensations from obligatory requirements and allegorical interpretations. Abu al-Hasan Ali bin Ibrahim al-Khusri al-Basri, he resided in Baghdad, renowned from his exalted spiritual state and eloquence. He was a Sufi master of his age. He belonged to the circle of al-Shibli. He died in Baghdad in the year 371. Al-Khusri said, some people say that Al-Khusri makes no mention of supererogatory acts, yet I have been reciting supererogatory litanies since my youth, so that whenever I neglect just one bow during the prayer, I am punished. He also said, if someone lay false claims to the mystical reality, his lie will be exposed when the irrefutable divine proofs are revealed. Abu Abdullah Ahmad bin Atta al-Rudbari, he was the son of Sheikh Abu Ali al-Rudbari's sister. He was the greatest master of Syria in his age. He died in Tyre in 369. I heard Muhammad al-Hussein say, I heard Ali bin Said al-Masisi say, I heard Ahmad bin Atta al-Rudbari say, as I was riding a camel, its foot sank into the sand. I said, God is great. Then the camel also said, God is great. Whenever Abu Abdullah al-Rudbari and his companions were invited to a house of the common people or non-Sufi folk, he would not tell the poor about this. He would first host them in his house and feed them. After they had eaten, he would tell them about the invitation and they would go together to that place. By that time, they would be so well fed and they would not touch the food prepared for them except a little. He did this so that the common people would not think ill of this Sufi community nor commit sins because of them. It is said that once Abu Ali al-Rudbari walked behind the door because it was his wont to do so. As they were on their way to a dinner at somebody's house, a grocer shouted at them, look at these transgressors. And he started to berate them, saying among other things the following, one of them borrowed 100 dirhams from me and never returned them to me. Where can I find him now? When they entered the house to which they were invited, Abu Abdullah Rudbari said to the host, who was an admirer of the Sufi folk, if you want my heart to be at ease, lend me 100 dirhams. The host gave them to him immediately. Abu Abdullah then said to one of his companions, take this 100 dirhams to such and such grocer and tell him that this is the money that one of us borrowed from him. There was an excuse for this, not returning it on time, but he has finally sent it to you, so accept his apology. The man went away and did as Abu Abdullah told him. As they were returning from the dinner, they passed by the grocer's store. On seeing them, the grocer began to praise them, saying, they are trustworthy people who keep their promises, they are righteous, and such like things. Abu Abdullah once said, the most repugnant creature is a greedy Sufi. For this video, we will finish here. We will continue in the next video, inshallah. Please don't forget to subscribe. Till then, goodbye. Allah Hafiz.